All right. Okay, we'd like to welcome you all to our Riverdale City Council meeting for Tuesday, April 15th, 2025. Let the record show that all members of the City Council are present, as well as members of the city staff, and also some visitors tonight. We'd like to welcome those visitors. We are going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Cooper.
Please rise and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. I have asked Councilor Hanson if she would offer our invocation.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're so grateful for this opportunity to meet together to talk about the city and its business. We're grateful for the many blessings that we have in our life, especially to be able to live here, and for our community and for the employees who keep us safe and who do so much to take care of us. Please bless them and watch over them and help us tonight that we may be guided to do those things that are in the best interest of the city, and to share our thoughts and feelings with kindness and respect, and to remember thee. We love thee and we thank thee for all of our many blessings. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilor Hanson. We really are blessed to live here, I think.
And plus the guys that bring the water and take the other stuff away.
Yes.
Especially.
Yes. We would miss them. We would miss them if that stopped. Keep them safe. Actually, well, yeah, let's see. I'll talk about that in just a second. Okay, so we now have a time for public comment. This is an opportunity to address the City Council regarding your concerns or ideas. No action will be taken during the public comment. If you do approach the microphone, please state your name and the city in which you reside, and try to limit your comments to 3 minutes.
How is everybody?
Great.
This is the first council meeting I've been to in many years, and I've lived here in the same little house for 45 years.
Wow.
I live at the intersection of 5150 South and 1150 West. So if you were to go west on 5150 South from the used to be Motor View sign, and travel west on that block, you'd drive right into my driveway. One of the things I wanted to ask about was, it's decades old now since that road's been put in, and those houses, compared to my house, are new houses. I heard grumblings way back then about maybe either blocking off one end of that road or the other, or making one end or the other a cul-de-sac to facilitate better traffic flow and safety and things like that. And I just wondered if any other thoughts about that had emerged in the last, say, 20 years since those houses have been there. And the other question I have, that's not that many years old, was the consideration of the roundabout right there at the 5-point intersection at South Weber Drive and 1150 and Ritter Drive and all that stuff. If that was still in the pot, because I can see where that would be a boon for safety, especially with the 65 some odd houses going in the new subdivision right there where the Motor View used to be. So I just wondered if there was still any thoughts about either of those two things, because I'm really surprised, and I'm talking to the chief here all the time, that there haven't been a lot of accidents there by my intersection right there by the school, by the elementary charter school and the UAMA on the other side. And also right there at that 5-point intersection. I'm really surprised over the decades that we haven't had more issues there, but I'd hate to see something serious happen there. So those are my only two questions.
And your name?
Rod Turner.
Rod Turner. We can probably respond to that a little bit. We don't really take action, but there are some folks here that could probably answer a couple of those questions.
I realize 1050 West is a state road, so
Sure.
That would take coordination between the state and the city too. So,
do you want to take that, Mr. Douglas? Are you comfortable answering that right now?
So right now we're just finishing the design on that. So the hope is to bid that roundabout this fall.
Oh, okay.
And that would include the cul-de-sac on 1150.
All right.
So
it's a cul-de-sac on 1150, not your street.
Right.
It's the one you live on at the
So
end.
you do away with basically the 5-point intersection and make the
The roundabout.
southeast end of 1150 a dead end right there.
yes,
Is that the
southeast.
idea?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then how would people get out of the neighborhood then?
Your street. You're gonna have more traffic.
That's what I don't want. All right, thank you.
Yes. Okay, any other comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to presentations and reports. Thank you for coming to the meeting, and we always love to have residents come and,
Retired slug, I need to involve somehow. Instead
Yeah.
of just sitting around, you know. I appreciate it.
He was a Riverdale police officer too. 1970.
75 to 79, I was a police officer.
oh, wow. So we have a VIP in their house tonight. I mean, like, that's amazing, so.
I can tell you all the changes that have taken place in this town.
Well, we're glad you've stuck around for 45 years. That's amazing. Okay, presentations, reports. We'll start off the mayor's report. And Councilor Arnold mentioning how important our public works guys are. I'm not sure on the night because my days are kind of blended together, but we did have a water leak over there. And man, those guys are amazing. Like they were standing over there. Travis, I think, was standing there, and they'd called in the troops, and it was about 8 o'clock at night, and I just went over and asked him how it kind of happens, and he's like, well, they'll be coming down the road with the barricades, and we'll dig it up. There'll be 4 of us. We got the on-call guy coming, and I said, well, I want to post and let the people know the water's going to be off, and so he gave me a time frame, and sure enough, about 12 or 1 in the morning, he said the water's back on, and I just can't believe those guys were working all night like that. That's incredible. So anyway, tell your guys thank you. Thank you so much. So, and just in good spirits, my son was there, and he's like, I want to be the guy driving the tractor with all the barricades in it, you know. Anyway, they were in good spirits. They weren't annoyed or anything that they had to come in, leave their families. They probably just barely got home. Anyway, the other thing is, we mentioned this, we got our conference this week, Utah League of Cities and Towns. Really excited to go down there with you guys. I think it's a great time for us to go down there and kind of, build relationships between ourselves and also with the other cities and stuff. It's a fun time down there. Also, we talked just a little bit. There was an event yesterday. Weber County Republican women had a luncheon, and I spoke with 2 other mayors. And there's an article in the newspaper, and it sounds like most of you are aware of it, but it's a pretty good article. And the newspaper, I'm always hesitant to talk to them, but they did a real good job of encapsulating our 2030 problem. And I mentioned that. They had us talk about our biggest challenges, and they really did a good job. I hesitate to talk to them because they sometimes don't get it exactly right, but they really nailed it and talked about some of our challenges. So it's a good article if you get a chance to read it. It's the Standard Examiner. And that's all I have. Next is City Administration Report. Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. The department heads reports are in your packets. We've got a handful of them there tonight. I don't know if you have any questions on anything specific in there. If you don't, I will just move through just a couple highlights. Cody did say that he tried to put a little bit more information in on the financial materials tonight. There was one thing that I wanted to draw your attention to. I'm always bringing up the bad stuff, so I want to point out something that's pretty good. On my PDF, it showed us page 12. This is in Cody's stuff, and there's a couple of bar charts. One of them's going horizontal and the other vertical. But in that, if you look at that, the fiscal year to date in 24 and 25, if you compare those, they're side by side there, we have almost caught up. And so I pointed that out to you the past few months. We've been really nervous about that because our sales tax had continued to drop. But I'm not sure the exact reason, but we were within like $10,000 between those 2 years, which is a pretty good catch up for us. So that was encouraging. Anytime we see those dips in sales tax, we get nervous, but that one showed us a little bit different perspective on that, so we were really encouraged by that one. Another couple of his charts, there's, well, I won't get into a lot of these. We have seen some reductions in both ambulance and court fines, and there's probably numerous reasons why, but I'm going to sit down and meet with the chiefs on both of those to see if they have some thoughts or some ideas. One of them, at least in fire, where we've been kind of short on staff, could have affected that drastically. So, but I'll meet with them here shortly and try to see if we can figure that out and see if there's something we can do to help alleviate those. The ambulance fees were way down, so that was a little bit concerning. Let me besides that, that's really all I had in those. Did anybody have any questions on any of the department heads' reports before I move on?
I don't have any questions, but just pass on my thanks to Cody on that. I appreciate the added detail and the timeliness of that. That's helpful.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do that every month. We just didn't know exactly what you wanted in there, but I think we're getting that narrowed in, and we can keep providing that for you. It's all available. We just needed to know for sure, so I'm glad to hear that. As far as employee recognition, we didn't have anybody on their anniversary date that was up, but I did want to draw attention to the one, if you saw that, Paul Flagg, 42 years this year with Riverdale City, and Paul's been a big asset. He's really digging in on that fire inspection stuff, and he's doing a great job, so we're happy to have him there. I think he's happy with the position, and it's worked out well for both of us. And obviously Casey there, he's got 21, and then when I see these people like Waldo and Angie coming up, I remember when they started, and I look at this now and I see 9 and 7 years. This is when I start feeling really old, like I'm one of the old men around here. So I guess one of these days I'm just gonna face up to the facts here. But good employees and great people to have around, and we're grateful to have them. Staffing authorization, that continues as is. It's interesting right now at this exact moment. Now, some of these may have changed just within the last week, but we have 3 positions in the city that are open. One with police, one with fire, and one with public works. I don't ever recall that happening since I've worked here. In those 3 big departments that we've had an opening in each one of them, and I know they're getting close to filling a couple of those. So, but I think it's just a testament to the city that people who come here, they like the job and they stay here, and we don't see them leave that much. And then to get 1 in each of those departments at the same time is kind of weird, and for various reasons. You know, one went to another city, one was retirement, it just various reasons. One was a promotion and stuff, so it wasn't anything that Riverdale's doing wrong. It's just those things that happen when you have a business. Community development report. Brandon, you got something you want to give us on that? I know you have your report that's listed in there, but maybe just give them some more updates. I know you did it a couple weeks ago. We've had a couple little changes since then, so I'll turn some time over to you for that.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for all of you who were able to attend the DXL Big and Tall ribbon cutting that happened on Friday. It was a little bit short notice. We learned about it. We were coordinating with them, and then all of a sudden they kind of laid it on us. And so thanks for coming. I think it's important to notice the difference between them and maybe some others. We're grateful for all of our retailers and commercial businesses, but having a new soft goods clothing retailer open up in the city, especially one that's niche like that, I think is encouraging, because soft goods clothing retailing is very difficult. It's not like food, which food is very popular and difficult also, but it still has a different trend line. And so I see that as encouraging. I see the fact that they took such a big space as encouraging. So that was a good sign. And then on the list, you'll see all of the typical cast of characters that we have in terms of our projects. Good Vets is on your calendar for the next ribbon cutting. I believe it's on the 23rd. And that'll be another nice, unique thing to have in the community. It's a national company that partners with local vets, similar to how a franchise model would work. And so I think that is a nice thing to have in the community as well for cats and dogs. And then obviously Trader Joe's is real. Just want to put that out there in case people think it's not.
Thank you. I will just add one thing on that DXL store. I hadn't really thought about the way that Brandon put that, but that's true. That's a tough market in a clothing store, stuff you can order online, and for them to open up. And I would encourage those of you that didn't make it to go look at that store. It feels like you're in Dillard's or something. It is gorgeous inside. It feels like a high-end department store. I went and looked around. They have a lot of neat stuff. And if you poke around or prod them just a little bit, they'll tell you where the clearance areas are and stuff. So they have some really good deals in there too, because, full price stuff is is expensive these days, and but they have some deals on some stuff, and it's really nice stuff, really high end, like brand name stuff, and I just hope they do great. They have over 100 stores, and they said that their clearance stuff would be coming in by the truckload from other stores and stuff. They didn't really even have that set up yet. So anyway, yeah, thank you. That was
Smallest size is 2X.
yes. I thought I heard her say XL, but I don't know. There was a lot
2X.
going on.
Yeah.
2X. So a small size is 2X.
You have to be at least 6 feet tall.
I don't know. I
Not for my family.
think they cater to all sizes.
Maybe there's a niche for that.
What was impressive is they had a shoe department that goes from 14 to 18, which
Oh.
is,
Yeah. I saw a teenager in there, a big teenager. I'm sure his mom was just relieved because buying clothes online and not being able to try stuff on with a teenager, I'm sure it's just so frustrating and challenging. So I think it's going to do well. I hope it does. Anyway, thank you. Back to Mr. Brooks.
That's all we had, Mayor, as far as the city administration report.
All right, thank you. We'll move on. Move on to item number 3, the UDOT 5600 South construction final report for the finalization of this project, because we're going to wrap it up here in the next couple of weeks.
Not quite.
Oh, not quite. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I read that wrong.
Thank you, Mayor.
How about Freeway Park Drive, though?
That is
Let's
very
talk about
close,
it.
Yes.
Okay.
So thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council and staff. My name is Elmer Acevedo. I help with the UDOT communications for this project. So you can see our project schedule here. We're kind of entering into more reconstruction of 5600. Freeway Park Drive is coming to hopefully an end here for those businesses. But our project is slated to finish in 2026, and we are on schedule for that. So some updates here. I-15, we are going to be moving into what's called a through U temporary configuration. That is going to be on the off ramps of 5600. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with, I believe it's Hillfield Road in Leon, and how you have to continue straight and then kind of do like a turnaround to take a left. So that is going to be happening on 5600. It won't be till around June, and it's only temporary for about 3 months. That work will allow us to get into the middle and allow a 56 and finish up that work there, and it'll same thing towards the base. Yeah, so from about where the Hill Air Force Museum is to about where Golden West is on 5600, you'll have that through you kind of configuration. So Freeway Park Drive, that is coming to an end here. We are paving the section we were working on today, so most of that is paved over now. The tie-ins, the driveways for those businesses are going to be paved over. Once that is finished, we will stripe it, and then we will move traffic over to that new pavement.
Nice.
And then we will work on the other side, but that shouldn't affect traffic at all since that road is kind of bad right now. So that'll be over there. So they should have the same configuration. And then we will be doing some access, some new graphics for access. So the Missile Way intersection, as you guys can see there, that little loop, that is going to be a new way on how to access Freeway Park Drive. So there is going to be a new intersection there. So in order to access Freeway Park Drive from 56, you're going to go past Freeway Park Drive, head towards, like if you're going to the base, and then take a right at that new intersection, which will put you through that loop, over the structure, and then right onto Freeway Park Drive. And then it'll be two-way traffic, so if you want to get to 56 from Freeway Park Drive, you'll go over the new structure, take a left there, and then head down through the loop again, underneath the structure to 56. So we'll be releasing some videos to show drivers on how to kind of manage that new intersection. But this should relieve a lot of the traffic, a lot of the kind of, because you can't do left turns from that intersection right now, or right turn, excuse me. So that should kind of relieve that as people are leaving Northrop Grumman in the base. And then Ritter Drive, that should be open later today or early tomorrow. So again, that's being paved over. So that's part of the paving we're doing on Freeway Park Drive. And then 5600, again, we're just doing paving. That's what the name of the game right now for summer and spring is. We have the temperatures, we're gonna pave. One thing to mention is we are trying to reach what's called beneficial occupancy. So what that means is 2 drivers, everything will look complete, but we'll just be off to the side, kind of finishing up the work, and that's hopefully coming this summer. So that's what we're working towards to finish up this summer. Any other like paving operations, things will have to come back in the spring, just because we won't have the weather in the winter to finish it up. Any questions?
What is going to be between the Riverdale Road exit and Freeway Park Drive?
There is a cast in place barrier there. You can kind of see it now. You'll see it when that Freeway Park Drive new intersection opens.
And just, I think I heard you say this, but I want to make sure that, so that through you stuff, that's going to go away. It's just temporary. 'Cause I
Yes,
think
it's just
people are
temporary.
gonna,
Yes.
yeah, I think we'll get a lot of questions. I don't think the Layton one is very popular.
No, it's
and if they
not.
think you're putting that in Roy, I think it's going to really cause a lot of people. If we can tell them, hey, it's just a temporary thing. So, okay, good. I just want to be able to tell them that and
Yeah.
be telling the
Yeah,
truth.
we're planning about 3 months for
Yeah,
it. But.
it's fine if it's temporary. Yeah.
Where is the through you?
So as you exit off the ramp for like 5600, it's going to be there. So you're only going to be able to take rights. You're not going to be able to take a left.
Oh, okay.
Exit off it from going south or north?
Northbound. Yep.
North.
Yeah. So if northbound, you'll need to head towards the base. You'll get into the left lanes and then do that U-turn to head down 56.
That's what that big loop was, right? That sent you back around.
That loop is how to exit into how to access Freeway Park Drive now.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Really good.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank
Just
you.
keep in mind, though, that's not finished asphalt up there. There is another layer of asphalt that will still be done later this summer on Freeway Park Drive.
Is it just going to be loose gravel or?
No, it's asphalted, but it's the base layer. So they're putting down a first layer, but then we'll have 1.5 inch overlay that comes back over the top of it when they can do it all continuous.
Okay.
So there will
Great.
be
So it'll be
future
real
paving
nice.
on that.
Yeah, it'll be left really nice. But for right now, those businesses are going to have all their after this.
We got to
nice
get them
job.
open. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for taking the time. Okay, we'll move on to item F, the consent items. Number 1, consideration to approve the meeting minutes from April 1st, 2025 council work session and council meeting. Any changes or corrections to those minutes other than what was mentioned in the work session? Seeing none, we need a motion to approve. Councilor Arnold?
Move to approve consent items with the one change that was mentioned in the previous meeting.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you. We will move on to action items. Number 1, consideration of Ordinance 992, amending Riverdale City Code 10-19-9, temporary structures for seasonal sales. Mr. Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. So this request comes before you tonight as a result of a petition from McFarland Farms to place a temporary structure for seasonal sales in the city. Currently, I don't have my beeper, sorry. Will you go ahead? Next slide, please. Currently, our code in 1019-9 excludes the sale of fruits and vegetables unless it's produced on the premise, and that's usually only allowed in A1 zones. And so currently, the request by McFarland Farms is not permissible under the code. And so we've looked at some language that might be more flexible for their use, and we have Mr. Kenny McFarland here tonight as the petitioner to answer any questions for you. The current code, and you can refer to your packet, I've listed the current code in its entirety as a strike-through with the new proposed code language in red. Right now, it reads as a waiver to existing codes in terms of the allowance of a temporary structure for seasonal sales. The definitions aren't very clear, and it was amended last in 2013. So we took a look at it. Go ahead, please. To make the clarifying changes that potentially would allow for a broader scope of uses while still being particular about those things that we may not want to see as a seasonal sale item. Be very affirmative in terms of those zones that it is permitted, so it's not a question of as to where, but be very clear about that. Clear standards on what the temporary structures look like, and clear standards on the actual permitted use. So that's what the red language seeks to do. So what is a temporary structure? I've listed a few here. You can see that the big picture there on the left is what would be considered a roadside stand. Right now, again, this would be permissible only in an A1 zone, only on a property that actually produces those fruits and vegetables. Christmas trees, we have those now currently. We do have fireworks as a seasonal sale item in a temporary structure. We also have farmers markets, or had farmer market, and so those are all considered temporary structures for seasonal sales that would be permissible. Snow shacks are permissible as well, and the upper right would be something that could be permissible if tonight's action is granted. The things that would not be permissible under this change, we would not allow flowers as a seasonal sale item. So it's just a few specific things. We wouldn't allow rugs or jewelry or some of the things that you might see otherwise. Food trucks and things like that are regulated under a different code via state law, and so this doesn't seek to address any of that.
What if the farm place wants to sell flowers with their fruit?
Right now, it's very specific.
Okay. Nothing at all.
Right, no flowers at all. So the proposal is to allow seasonal sales in the C3 zone only, as well as the A1 zone on premise as it currently states. And the C3 zone is generally up and down Riverdale Road in the purple colored area. Go ahead, please. The proposed standards would match some that are currently in the code, but elaborate where it's needed. So the applicant would be required to get a temporary use permit. That would include the applicant going to a private property owner and seeking a request to be on their property. So that's a mutually agreed upon thing. They can't go on vacant lots. They have to go on developed lots with the owner's permission. Once they receive that permission, they would give us an informal site plan, and we would allow those items that are specifically called out in the red language, which in this case would be fresh fruits and vegetables, farmers markets, roadside stands, holiday-related items, so pumpkins, Christmas trees, fireworks, things like that, and then other temporary seasonal goods as approved by the director, which could include shave ice and snow cones. So if it's not necessarily specifically listed, then it would be omitted, similar to flowers and jewelry and those kind of things. The Planning Commission did make a recommendation of a 20-week duration instead of a 15-week, which was my original proposal to the Planning Commission. That matches a little bit more closely to harvest season, and it still allows for shoulder holidays like Christmas and 4th of July and those kind of things. 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. operation, that would be the standard, similar to some of our retailers. Again, private property only, we would need to see that permission granted at the application. The structure would have to be self-contained and not to exceed 200 feet. It's 200 square feet, so Hokalia trailer or one of those shacks that were in one of those pictures seemed to work fine for that. And we have the ability under the proposed language to look at that from a fire code and from a building code, and if it exceeds that 200 square feet, then that would be a cause for denial. Self-contained, again, on private property, but we don't want extension cords and things straddled across the parking lot from the temporary structure to the main building. So it'd have to be self-contained with its own power. There has been question of, can it be located up on the frontage of a property that might be next to a meter base for a sign or something? And I think that would be looked at the time of application and determined if that was permissible based on proximity. No closer than one per site or 500 feet proximity on either side of the road. And so we want to allow for some of these types of uses, but not proliferate the area with them. It can be a distraction for drivers if they see a roadside stand that they're not used to seeing, and they make an abrupt traffic movement to get there. So we don't want these things layered across the frontage of our properties, but we do want to propose language that allows for some that might be beneficial, like fruits and vegetables. And then the approval authority would be the director, myself, with any appeal to the planning commission. So this wouldn't come back to the legislative body in terms of the uses, but it is your decision now to determine if this is an appropriate ordinance change. So the planning commission actually looked at this, tabled it because for scheduling reasons, Mr. McFarland and his wife weren't able to be here and they wanted to hear from them. So they untabled it on the 8th of April, and after some discussion, hearing from them and my presentation, they voted to unanimously forward a favorable recommendation. And that was, I think, based on the fact that I went to a couple of our retailers, Home Depot, Walmart, Target. I didn't get to speak to Home Depot, unfortunately, but I spoke to the store managers of Walmart and Target, and they didn't feel like specifically fruits and vegetables or Christmas trees had much effect on their business. Obviously, they're not going to go into an arrangement with one of these types of vendors to set up in their parking lot, but they were okay with it if it was set up along Riverdale Road elsewhere in a C3 zone, and they felt like that would be a move on their behalf to support local business. So I think that was encouraging. And so based on that, and based on the fact that we're cleaning up some of the language, making it a bit more affirmative, a bit more clear, but also expanding it to allow some fresh fruits and vegetables outside of an A1 zone, and McFarland Farms has such a wonderful business model. Now, this doesn't necessarily preclude others that might just be a one-off kind of a thing, but again, with the ability to regulate the structure, site restrictions, and having essential control over the final approval, I think it's something that we would feel comfortable recommending.
Questions? I had one. So McFarland, our fruits and vegetables are tax exempt?
Right. Thank you. I forgot we had one more slide.
Oh, okay. You're going with that.
Yeah, well, I was done, so thanks for bringing us back.
Yeah.
So the collection and distribution back to the state of sales tax was one of the considerations because we have obviously the foundation of our commercial base is retailers who collect and pay sales tax, and so to bring to allow for uses that might contradict that was a consideration that I think was made in 2013, when this code was amended, and obviously now. And so this would require, at the time of application, it would require that any business that's already required to receive or to get a sales tax certificate from the state would be required from us to do that. So they would present that to us at the time of application, except for those that are exempt. And in this case, an agricultural producer would be exempt. A nursery, in terms of like Christmas trees, are also exempt, so they don't collect or pay sales tax. And there's a very short list under the state law of exempted entities. And so we would just honor that. If the state exempts them, then we wouldn't require that. But all others would be required to get that sales tax certificate.
Okay. Councilor Stevens.
Yep.
In the discussion, I've heard, now I don't see it written anywhere, I've heard the term locally produced. Now, it's not here, but that's kind of maybe implied that when you think of like a local fruit stand or whatever, fruits and vegetables. But are we talking bananas, mangoes, avocados? So it is going to be stuff, even though it may not be grown in Weber County, it's going to be stuff that's seasonal for the local farmers.
Are you asking, sorry, I might have shook my head a little prematurely. Are you asking in terms of the exemption of sales tax or
Yes.
the permitted use?
Well, it comes up under permitted use, but, or I'm sorry, sales tax, but also for permitted use, because
I mean, this page that you've got right now, it's like, yeah, local, family-owned, all the buzzwords. But is this, maybe Mr. McFarland can address that, is it going to be exclusive, not necessarily locally produced, but stuff you would locally harvest from the local farmers?
So there is a distinction. So in terms of the permitted use, it would be seasonal sales of fruits and vegetables.
Seasonal being bananas?
So in terms of
Even though they're imported from Nicaragua?
right,
Okay.
that vendor would then be required to collect and pay sales tax. That would be the difference between that and, say, McFarland Farms, who actually grows and sells their own produce here. And so that's why I asked. So you can sell fruits and vegetables that you potentially get from another location or buy from another location, but you would be required to provide that sales tax certificate to us as part of the application. Does that help with the question?
I guess I'll have to visit the store to see what their
So seasonal isn't about the food. Seasonal just means it's a temporary time frame. So it could be any time of year, not during the harvest time even at all. So it could be like right now and they're selling mangoes because it's springtime.
Right, and that was
it just means it's temporary.
That was the confusion in the original code because you didn't quite know what seasonal meant. So seasonal is the duration, and the permitted uses are fruits and vegetables. And the sales tax exemption only happens when you are actually as it says here, you're the agricultural producer and you're selling it through your own family or employees of your family. So in the case of McFarland Farms, we talked about in the Planning Commission, they do buy watermelon from another grower and sell it through their stands, and that item itself would be taxed as opposed to their own items that they grew themselves.
Just like locally harvest Christmas trees.
I'm sorry, what was it?
Locally harvest
Locally.
Christmas trees.
Yeah.
River County Christmas trees. I saw the farm.
So in the case of a Christmas tree vendor, if they are the nursery who grows and harvests the trees and then sells them through their own employees or family, they would be tax exempt. But if they purchase Christmas trees from another nursery in Oregon and then vended them through a stand on private property here in Riverdale, they would collect sales tax, but they would be a permitted use.
Other questions? Councilor Arnold.
Move to approve ordinance 992 as stated within the packet.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
Motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Ms. Maragona, you would please poll the council.
Counselor Hanson?
Yes.
Counselor Hawes?
Yes.
Counselor Stevens?
Yes.
Counselor Richter?
Yes.
Counselor Arnold?
Yes.
All right, that passes unanimously. I didn't have anything to do with this, but I'm super excited about it because I don't know if you guys realized it, but we are losing our farmers market. They are not going to do that again this year. They didn't have enough vendors, so this softens that blow just a little bit to have some local produce coming in.
My wife's happy because we don't have to drive down to West Weber.
Yeah, and we've purchased from them too, and so it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's a win. And I don't even feel guilty because I didn't even know it was happening. So like, I don't feel like I did it for myself. I did have a quick question before we go to the next item. Speaking of Hokulia, they were looking for a new site. Are we going to be able to help them find something in the city?
I spoke to that gentleman. I believe his name is Kevin.
I think so.
And for whatever reason, I'm not sure, but the owners of the property where the Mission Barbecue is going in, where the old Honey Baked Ham was, did not allow him to set up there. And I'm not sure, and he wasn't sure either as to why that was. It might have something to do with the lease that they're entering into with Mission Barbecue. But I did tell him that we were going to be revising this, and I'd get back to him after tonight's action. But he would now be required to find another location in the C3 zone that the private property owner would allow him to set up on.
Okay.
But as far as the reason why, he didn't know, and I wasn't sure.
Okay. Well, any help we can get him. He's been a great partner, our movie in the park and stuff, and I would just like to see him be able to stick around if possible. I think he's a teacher at the junior high school, and and there's kids, the local kids work there, and so it would just be sad to lose them, if we, just because.
We talked about the property owner in front of Ashley's.
Sure.
As a great spot, so I think
Yeah.
he's working with them.
Okay, great. And I appreciate all you're doing to help with that. Just didn't have an update on it. Okay, number 2, consideration of resolution 2025-11, awarding a bid to Slippery Rock Constructors for the 2025 water line improvement project in an amount not to exceed $616,291,000.85. Mr. Douglas.
Thank you, Mayor. It was exciting this time to actually have some competition at a bid opening. We had a lot of contractors there, and they were fairly hungry for a change. We have worked with Slippery Rock, but it's been probably 18, 20 years ago. At that time, we did have a good, successful project. And he claims he's still doing the same thing. We met with him after the bid opening. He's excited to be back in Riverdale working, and he likes the project, likes the location, and he's excited to be here. So we would recommend approval, and if you have any questions, we'll answer them.
Counselor Hanson.
I just noticed that the traffic control and SWIP were a lot lower than everybody else, but I assume that they'll be okay, that you'll be keeping an eye on everything to
We'll
make
have
sure
somebody
that they're-
watching him. So
Yeah.
it's actually an area that traffic control is going to be very minimal because there's very little traffic in that area. I mean, the local homes will be affected, but it's not like it's a through street. And I mean, as far as tracking, like, there really shouldn't be much. He's going to keep a confined trench, and like, it should be pretty easy on the stormwater stuff too. So I don't see him having any issues with it. And you never know with them. Some guys put more money in one thing and they use it somewhere else. I mean, it's a line item, but we don't know where he put what. So
Okay.
that's always a question.
Any other questions? Counselor Hawes.
Found the piece that I had missed before about the 10%. I just want to say that I was a bit surprised at the range of the bids. I mean,
I was too. I'll be frank, like,
Double.
but the highest one was more than double the winning bid. So
I didn't think we'd have anything that was bid over $1 million. Like, I thought we'd have some in the 900 range. The engineer's estimate was in the 800 range, and so I figured we'd have some over that. But to have them be that big of a spread, like I said, we met with him after, asked him if he felt comfortable and that his numbers were good. He said he felt like his numbers was good, and he felt like it was a great project for him. They verified his numbers when they went through the bid, and they didn't find any errors in it. So I think it's a great price for us. So
Okay. If there's no other questions, we'd need a motion. Counselor Arnold.
Move to approve resolution 2025-11 awarding the bid to Slippery Rock Constructors for the 2025 water line improvement project in the amount not to exceed $616,291.85.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
Motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Ms. Maragoni, please poll the council.
Counselor Richter?
Yes.
Counselor Arnold?
Yes.
Counselor Halls?
yes,
Counselor Hanson?
Yes.
Counselor Stevens?
Yes.
All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you. No one wanted to second an expenditure like that. All right. Number 3, consideration to approve a non-exclusive use of city property agreement. Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. This is just a follow-up to the presentation from the Bonneville Bike Club that was in a couple meetings ago, or one meeting ago. I can't remember exactly when it was, but just a non-exclusive use to use that part of our park down there that was kind of disrupted with the Bach people when they went in and cut a bunch of those trees and stuff down. So you all asked me to draft up an agreement that we could live with, and this is kind of what we came up with. I've been talking with Mike a little bit, and I think he's okay with it, so we felt it was ready for the packet and brought it back in for this meeting.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Brooks? Counselor Arnold.
I just wanted to say, I think it's kind of weird that we're having a non-exclusive use of city property agreement. So it's like you have to have an agreement to use the property, but it's not exclusive that anybody can just blow in there and do it. So it's like if one of your guys get hurt, it's up to you guys to take care of it. But if somebody's riding that trail before and they don't have an agreement and they get hurt, is it up to the city to take care of that? Are they trespassing? If they have a non-exclusive, they don't have an exclusive, it's just strange. Whole thing's odd.
Mr. Brooks?
You want me? Yeah. Well, that's kind of the balance that I had to find in writing this up, because we have to be a little bit careful, because we just passed that park policy where we're charging for the use of that, and so this whole thing was a little bit strange. But when I indicated to you at that last meeting that I checked with our insurance company, and if somebody just went down there and used it, they may or may not be most likely they'd be trespassers, and that's the defense that we would use. But in this particular case, they came in to ask us if they could use it and to clean it up a little bit and continue to do whatever they do down there. So it was just a real balancing act for me to find language here that could kind of protect the city, but still at the same time let somebody use it that had asked us specifically and said they'd take care of it and whatnot. So it is a little bit strange, but that's what you asked me to do, so that's what I drafted up here.
Do we post it? So non-exclusive users only?
Well, that means it's just everybody, right?
No, that's right.
It's not exclusive.
One of the
But
concerns we
Mike's
had
group is
that
caring
just
for it,
like
right?
you and
I
me,
mean,
we don't give them, will they get exclusive use for that particular part of the park they're using now under that ordinance? But even that we have to be a little bit careful of, because this is all public property. So cities never want to just say, yeah, we'll let a private party use a particular piece of property that's owned by all the taxpayers. And so we have to make it non-exclusive, really, since it is public property, and we're not getting any financial reimbursement or anything like that. So it's just a very unique situation, but I think one that protects us at the same time lets them use it. And there's a lot of outs for us if we have to tear this out for whatever reason. It's completely in the city's jurisdiction on how we decide when and how to do that. So
I think if you're good with it and Mike's good with it, then
Mr. Brooks, I did have a question. Just this conversation's kind of even made me start to think a little bit more about it, but this doesn't weaken our position with the park policy at all, having this agreement, allowing a non-exclusive use.
No, I think it actually helps us because it's the same theory. I mean, and I made it real clear. You're talking about two different pieces of property. One is one that is used and it's well kept and maintained, and this is just the opposite of that. So it's not something the city has any vested interest in right now, but we will in the future. Whereas parks, we have vested interest in right now. And so that was one of the reasons why we implemented that policy. And I think we can clearly make it a distinction between that property and that type of use compared to this one.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Councilor Arnold?
move to approve the non-exclusive use of city property agreement as stated within the packet.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Ms. Maragoni, please poll the council.
Counselor Stevens?
Yes.
Counselor Arnold?
Yes.
Counselor Richter?
Yes.
Counselor Hanson?
Yes.
Counselor Haas?
Yes.
All right, that passes unanimously. That's great. So good. Thank you, Mr. Staten, for coming in. And we're looking forward to seeing what you do. All right, number 4, consideration of resolution 2025-12, adopting a policy regarding special needs participants in city programs. Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. As I mentioned in the planning meeting here, this just came up recently, and it's one we bump into occasionally. But we had I believe he was a young man who signed up for one of our sports programs. And obviously, parents are a little bit concerned about that when it's an individual who may have some special needs and some things that the city might have to do a little bit differently than what we'd normally do. So anyway, Rich Taylor had approached me about this and said, what do we do? And we kind of walked through that particular situation. But just to be not only fair but consistent on this, I thought it was probably best to draft up a policy, and that's what this is. It's like anything when you're dealing with special needs or handicaps and things like that. You have to make certain reasonable accommodations to help them, and certainly Riverdale doesn't want to, give the impression that we're not interested in their needs, and we want to make sure that they participate and are able to have fun in our programs. And so that's kind of what this whole policy is about. I handed this around to both Rich and Stacy both, because they're the ones that are going to see it the most. And, we made some changes based upon their comments and stuff, but I think it's in pretty good shape, at least for now. And we'll post this online in our policy portion, so that people can read this and they know exactly where the city stands and how we'll try and accommodate them in any of these situations. So I don't know if any of you have questions or comments on it.
Any questions for Mr. Brooks? Councilor Oz.
How is FERPA and HIPAA how might those be applicable to our situation?
Well, one of the things, there's a section in there that we are allowed to ask the parents. Now, they're not obligated to give us any of this stuff, but if they chose to, then, and it's not just those policies, we have our own privacy policy. Any of these policies we have to be really, really careful with. In fact, there were some legislative changes this year in regards to just protection of private information. And so we're just trying to make an emphasis there that if it involves any of that kind of stuff, we've got to take extraordinary measures to make sure that stuff's protected and none of that ever gets disclosed or end up in the wrong hands.
Okay,
I
thanks.
don't know that HIPAA necessarily would, but it could potentially, I guess, but in most regards it's not going to be. But I just want to make sure we covered all of our bases so that if something came up that we wouldn't divulge any of that accident.
Okay. Any other, Councilor Stephen Richter?
So are we just basically codifying what we've done in the past? I mean, these are policies that we've kind of followed. We're just putting, there's nothing in here that's new or out of the norm of what we've done in the past.
No, this is exactly what we did in this particular situation. It's kind of what we've done. In addition to that, I just wrote in some other things that we will make sure that we're educated and our people are trained. That's the risk you always take when you have a city, especially in Rich's department where he has a lot of turnover in those positions. We just need to be a little bit more aware of that as a city and make sure that they're getting proper training and education on these particular situations. And this is just not necessarily codifying it, but it is putting it in as a policy now.
Councilor Arnold.
I was just curious why we even need this. Why don't we just have a policy saying that we're following all state and federal laws? Why do we have to do it?
Consistency.
Because then we turn around, if the federal law changes or state law changes, then we have to change our policy. But if we're just following state and federal laws, then why do we need to dial it down like this?
Again, it's just consistency more than anything, Alan, because, maybe in 5 years I'm not here and Rich is not there and we're starting all over again with other people. Whereas if we have a policy in place, we've at least got something in writing. And people, if they have any questions, I mean, who would they call or who would they even check with on what the position is of the city and what do you do or what don't you do? And this way we put it in writing and then they have some assurances that we'll make sure we take care of.
I know where I work, we're having a real tough time, and we deal with the federal government a ton, but there's a distinction between policy and procedure. And I think what Councilor Arnold's getting at is maybe we could have a lot of this in a procedure manual or somewhere, but not necessarily in policy. And I don't know, Councilor Hanson probably deals with that kind of stuff all the time. It's almost like nobody really knows the difference between a policy and procedure. And, I kind of get what Councilor Arnold's saying a little bit.
Most of the time it guides it, though. You're rarely going to have a procedure where there's not a policy associated. The policy is kind of the framework to guide the procedure. Procedures can change.
Right.
But the overall policy that I almost said the county, that the city, maintains that we're always going to provide for our residents regardless of their level of ability, that's the overall policy. And then the procedure is just the framework beneath it. So, it's a starting point, and I see Steve's point, or Mr. Brooks' point, where, in the future, it is hard to come in behind people and then realize that they should have been following something that they didn't know existed. And so at least it will exist. And there's somewhere for our residents to refer back to and for our employees in the future to refer back to at least help the future staff to kind of guide those decisions and procedures. But yeah, you're right. Procedurally, that's
Well,
what changes
I'm
frequently.
thinking of like our gun laws, you know, I mean, we've got the guy coming in saying all of our gun laws are completely outdated because of what we put in the verbiage of that kind of stuff. And if somebody in Rich's position or your position, anybody, I mean, any position now with any type of special needs is something that,
I did think it was, I felt like it was a good overview. There wasn't like straight direct language to specific laws. I mean, there were some references in general, but nothing so direct that if there were any minute changes at the federal level or state level that we would have to dig back in right away. That it more kind of encapsulated the fact that we all know that, ADA laws exist and that we will do our best to provide. So I wasn't too worried about that part. It was detailed, but I don't know. I didn't see any
he's correct
issues.
on that. And the other thing too, in these situations, you have to be a little bit careful simply because every one of these are going to be handled on a case-by-case basis. So this was just kind of a generic overview saying exactly that, is that we'll be aware of those and we'll take care of them and accommodate them in any way that we possibly can.
And I think it did a good job of leaving us outs too. It wasn't so restrictive that it was like, we will do this no matter what.
Right.
It was if available and stuff like that.
It's
so
reasonable.
it kept it still reasonable. So
It has to be reasonable, and we also have to be aware of the others who are there. I mean, and even the participant themselves, the special needs participant, and the language is included in there that we got to look at that on a case-by-case basis because we don't want to put anybody in jeopardy.
Right.
Whether it's the special needs participant or the other participants. So I think it protects us without killing us in any way. I think it does what it's supposed to do.
it just scares me a little bit because like Weber State, I mean, you go up there and if they're non-communicative or have something, then pretty soon you're hiring someone for that person directly.
And I think that's where it gets into the undue burden. And I thought the language was pretty good in this policy, that it talked about the reasonableness and if it's an undue burden on the staff, on the city, on being able to accommodate it. Because, I mean, if we're providing like a simple sport that they're paying $20 to participate in, but then the city has to come through and do a multi-$100,000 something to accommodate, that's when you, like Steve said, that you judge it on a case-by-case basis and you can say, we did the review, we did everything we were supposed to do, but this is an undue burden that we can't provide for.
I just think it's crazy if we fight that. You know, we have a kid that wants to play Riverdale Little League basketball that's in a wheelchair. And we say it's too much of a burden on the whatever. All of a sudden we need to look at the state and federal laws and go, do we have to comply with that? And I think if we say that it's an undue burden on something, it gets to be a bigger fish to fry because of what we implemented, rather than just living on the state and federal level.
We run the risk on these things all the time.
Right.
Even in that situation, if we didn't have anything in place, we still run that risk under federal law of whether or not, did you try to make some reasonable accommodations, and whether you can do it or not. At least we tried, and that's what's going to help us if we end up in a case.
And if you have an existing policy is something they always look to, honestly. It shouldn't count for as much as it does, but it does.
Councilor Arnold.
Move to approve resolution 2025-12 as stated within the packet.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Couple of seconds. Recorder's choice on that. Any discussion on the motion? Ms. Maragoni, will you please poll the council?
Counselor Haas,
Yes.
Counselor Richter,
Yes.
Counselor Hanson,
Yes.
Counselor Stevens,
Yes.
Counselor Arnold.
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to the comments section of our meeting. Any comments from the city council for this meeting? Councilor Hanson.
I just had a request. I know we're coming up on finishing up the budget for the upcoming year. And when we went over it last time, we kind of did an overview of the CIPs, which included ambulances, possible ambulances, and even switching back to the older model, which is, or not the older, the other model, which is quite a bit more expensive. If that's going to come up at a future meeting that we're going to approve, I was just hoping maybe fire could give us kind of a better explanation of what are the big differences between the model that they have now versus the kind of old style ambulance, and what is the need to switch back? Are there safety concerns? Can they, if they could just provide more detail, because for 100,000 or a couple 100,000 more, I think we need to know a little bit better about.
Especially with the 30% drop in revenues.
Yeah. Well, and I do know they didn't run the ambulance for several months when we were maybe starting and being in between chiefs. They were telling us they weren't running it, so I know that impacted revenue, but it is just such a big expenditure that, I mean, if there's a legitimate need, it'd be good to know why, just so we can feel good about making that decision.
All of that has been part of our discussions with myself and Cody and the fire department just the last week, really. So we're pretty updated on that. We'll be able to give you a report on that. And Chief Hennessy's actually still waiting for a little bit of information on that, but all that's been part of our discussions. We'll give you a bigger update on that here, probably next meeting, in fact.
Thanks.
Great comment. Anything else? Okay. Any comments from the city staff?
No, Mayor, we've covered it all in the planning meeting.
Okay. I just had something real quick, and it doesn't fit here great, but because it's kind of so recently happened, I did have a resident reach out to me several weeks ago about they saw someone get hit in the crosswalk over by the school. And I wasn't able to get too much detail about it, but I was glad to see that it was on the police report, that it really existed. And then yesterday when I was at that meeting, Representative Jill Colford was there, and she approached me because a member of the resident's family had approached her thinking maybe the state is the one that dealt with crosswalks, and was really concerned about it. And I had already mentioned to Mr. Douglas that because of how busy that road is, maybe we could get some sort of lights or something. I know myself driving on Washington to work each day, the lights that come on for people in those crosswalks are invaluable for me. It's low light levels and stuff, and I mean people are coming out from between the cars, and those lights come on, I know it's time to stop. So that's something that I would really like to push hard for, is to get at least some sort of flashing lights that come on. Mr. Douglas is gonna look into that. I guess there's a little bit of an approval process, but anyway, that's something I hope we can do for a reasonable amount of money and to increase the safety on that a little bit. So that's just something to be aware of that I'm kind of pushing for. So and that's all I have. And so with that, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion to be a second.
Second.
Oh, all in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All right, we stand adjourned.
I know the answer.
Hey, I'd be remiss if I didn't say thanks to all you guys for your work, and also the great departments that we have, the fire department, the police department.